Hello, and welcome to another edition of Coffee Talk with immigration attorney Brian Lerner. In this particular episode, I'd like to talk about a recurring theme that seems to keep happening and put some clarification on it. Now, for those of you who are from treaty countries which have treaties with the U.S., they can qualify for what's called an E-2 visa. And an E-2 visa is an investment. It's called a treaty investor visa. So it's meant to be an investment visa. Just right off the bat, this is not the EB-5. I can't tell you how many times I tell people about this and they say, but I thought I had to have $500,000 or $1 million to get this. No, that's the EB-5, of which there is no treaty countries. You can be from anywhere on the planet and apply for that one, if you qualify. But the E-2 comes only from treaty countries. Okay, but here's the typical scenario. Somebody calls me up, let's say from London, wherever, and they say, I have a great idea. I've been an engineer for 20 years, and now I want to go to the U.S., started consulting businesses for, aircraft companies, whatever. And it's not going to cost me a lot of money to do it. I think I might need a little office, but I'm going to go visit the clients. I'm going to sell my knowledge, and they'll pay me that way. And therefore, at most, I'm going to need $10,000 to start this business. Well, the first thing I tell them is that's not going to work. Okay, there is the reality of what would be a company that you might be able to start, and then there's the immigration side of it. And since you are needing the immigration side of it, you can forget the reality part. Okay, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't have a good business. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't do your investigation, due diligence, and research to make sure that your business will work, and at least the best you can to make sure it will succeed. But what it does mean is that you look at the title of what an E-2 is. An E-2 is a treaty investor visa. It is meant to invest. If you're coming on a consulting business, that's not investing. Okay, you're not investing in anything. You're not buying a Subway. You're not buying a franchise. You're not buying a mom and pop place. You're not starting your own business where you're investing a bunch of money to, sell widgets from Germany or whatever it is. You're just consulting, which is great. You have lots of knowledge, and that can happen, but that's not investment. Okay, now there are ways of trying to make it an investment visa, but when we get in this discussion, which I do so often with clients, where they say, but I don't really need that much money in which to start my business, that's great, but that doesn't fall under the E-2. Okay, the U.S. made this particular kind of visa because they want money to flow into the U.S. They like it. They like the employees that it brings and so forth. There might be other things you might be able to do with just a consulting business, for example, such as an E-1, where the key there is trading, not investment. And we can talk, and I have talked about that in several other videos, but for the E-2, 10,000 will never work. I also have people who do research. They tell me they've done all this research, and they see that there's no minimum and no maximum for an E-2. And yes, that's true, but then there's the reality of what really is needed. And the reality is the vast majority of E-2s will really have no less than 75,000 to 100,000 investment. Now, this also means, because I have people who have, these consulting people who want to start their business, they go, look, I have $100,000. I'll just put it in a bank account there, and boom, I've invested. Well, that's not the case. An investment means the money is at risk. So if you take the, investment funds from wherever it is you live, and you transfer it to a corporate bank account here in the U.S., what do you have to do to get that money out? Nothing. You call the bank and you say you want to transfer it back. You walk in the bank and you fill out a deposit slip. There's nothing you have to do. It's not at risk. It's still your money. So that doesn't qualify. So of, for example, $100,000 you might have, maybe 25,000 can sit in the bank account to show that you have capitalization, ready to run the business. Obviously, you can't run a business if you have nothing in the bank account. But the other 75,000 needs to be invested. So let's say you have a consulting business. How can you possibly show an investment? Well, there's different ways. First of all, all the attorney's fees, the travel fees, the hotel bills, the eating, everything to set the company up, the incorporation fees, consultation fees that you might have had on tax matters, corporate matters, legal matters, all of that stuff, that can all be deducted. You can also find a nice little Fijian suite somewhere, and you can prepay rent for the next 3 years. That's not normal, in a normal business to do that, but if you do prepay the rent, then that is an investment. Additionally, if you have any other ideas other than the consulting business, you can put it all in the same E-2 package. You can, let's say, for example, do consulting 50% of the time, and the other percent you might want to sell widgets, or you might want to do deep sea fishing, whatever it is you want to do. The E-2 is wide open, and then you buy the boats or the whatever it is, the widgets. You can take fair market value of items you have in your home country and use that. I once had a person who wanted to sell, he made old cars, he restored them, and so all he had to do was transfer them from his home country to the US, and the fair market value of those restored cars got him way above the investment, and he didn't hardly have to pay a penny other than that to get the E-2 as far as investment, because he already did it. So there are ways of doing it, but don't get in your mind that just a simple consulting business will easily fall under an E-2, because it won't. And also don't get in your mind that just because your business might cost only $10,000 that's sufficient. It's not. Okay, we all know that the brick and mortar type of business is less than it used to be. Obviously, there's a lot of us, me included, that do a lot of business while not in the office. I mean, here I am doing coffee talk at a nice coffee place, and videos going all over. So, we all know that that's the reality, but immigration's behind a little bit, but you have what you have in order to get the E-2. So while a typical brick and mortar type business is still what immigration is looking for, you do want to comport with those regulations. So I also have a lot of people who they want to do just, they say, I can do this consulting business or this particular business I have, and it's just internet based, so I can do it out of my home. I can do it out of the garage. And we all know that there's a lot of businesses that have succeeded out of their garages, but for immigration purposes, for E-2, that's not a good idea. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't start in your garage, okay? I mean, while, if I had my preference, I would make sure you had an actual business office before you ever submitted the E-2. If that's just not possible, then the business plan and so forth would show that for the first year you're going to start in your office, but then of course you're going to move to a real office, which of course you'll have to do. You cannot maintain the E-2 out of a little home or a little room in your home. That's not going to happen. So the bottom line, there are ways to make this work, but there are certain ramifications you have to be aware of when doing the E-2, the reality of the E-2. Okay, if you like the video, click like, subscribe, give my office a call if you'd like a consultation. More on the coming videos.